What's up everybody, Genix Dividend Investor here. In this episode, I'll show you how to create a strong and stable dividend portfolio that should be able to deliver in both good markets and bad. I'll end this video by sharing a snarky comment I got this week from a hater who called my content garbage because dividends are irrelevant. Then I'm going to push back on that claim with some fresh evidence that came out today. And sorry if my voice is a bit off because I'm fighting a cold I got on vacation while in New York. So while getting sick there sucked, I did end up walking within a few feet of a famous actor as I was randomly roaming around the city, so stay tuned for that clip a little later. Overall, it was fun to see some old college buddies and relatives, and I got to hit some awesome restaurants while there, but man, New York just isn't for me. I mean, there are way too many people, too much chaos from horns and sirens and construction, and a pervasive smell of weed and urine that seemed to be all over the place, all of which made me appreciate getting back home. But millions of folks love it, so just like a portfolio, everyone has their preferences. And that's why I also like investing in things that are built to last, because after a trip like that, you're reminded pretty quickly that calm, stability, and structure are underrated. Of course, nothing with investing is guaranteed, but with the right structure, you'll have a better chance of surviving recessions, inflation, market panic, changing interest rates, and different stages of your life. Your goal should be to build something that matches your income needs today while still supporting your growth goals for tomorrow. You want a portfolio that keeps delivering when times are good or bad. And that's why I like the concept of a dividend yield pyramid, where each layer has a different job and the structure can adjust based on your income needs, growth needs, timeline, and risk tolerance. So to begin with, we have the base level, which has tickers that are low yield or no yield, but have high stock growth potential. Then the middle of the pyramid has medium yield and medium growth tickers, and the top is high yield and low growth. That means the pyramid isn't just about dividend income. It's also about total return and ultimately about building a portfolio that can grow before you ever need to live off of it. If you're younger or still far away from retirement, you probably don't need to squeeze every dollar of income out of your portfolio today. I.e., you may be better off owning companies that can grow earnings, raise dividends, appreciate in price, and compound for years. The further you are from retirement, the more you probably want to focus on total returns and growth, along with more risk. I say probably because there can be people who need or want some passive income as well. It all just depends on your realities. And as your need or desire for passive income increases, you can shift more of your focus and capital towards the middle and top layers. Thus, the pyramid isn't a fixed allocation rule. It's a framework that shifts as your life shifts. Okay, so now let's start with the bottom, that's what she said, i.e. the foundation where I'd put the lowest yielding but highest growing tickers. And note, while I know that a portfolio of only dividend stocks can do great, as 80% of the SP 500 tickers pay divvies, I also don't think you should avoid non-dividend stocks. I mean, companies like Amazon and Tesla and maybe even new IPOs like SpaceX could be smart to invest in, depending on your needs, goals, risk tolerances, and price points. Anyway, if you are dividend focused, then at this level I'd be talking about companies that yield under 3% on average. Obviously that may sound weak if you're focused on income right now, but those companies are also probably growing their dividends at 8 to 12% per year if they have them, thus your income should grow a lot faster with these types of tickers. Examples might be companies like Google, Microsoft, JP Chase, Goldman Sachs, Caterpillar, etc. I'm talking about the type of foundational companies that you can build an entire portfolio on top of, as they often have much stronger potential for stock appreciation because their business is still growing fast, reinvesting, expanding earnings, and building long-term value. So remember that a lower starting yield doesn't automatically mean a weak investment. In many cases, the lower yield is exactly what allows the dividend to be stronger because the company can keep more cash inside the business and use it to grow. And that growth is a key reason this layer belongs at the bottom. I mean, the base of the pyramid isn't supposed to give you the biggest income today. It's supposed to give you the strongest income growth over time, so you want your base to be solid and stable and low risk. Of course, a company yielding 8% may feel better on day one than a company yielding 2% because the income is bigger immediately. But if that 8% income never grows, then that probably means that inflation will start eating away at its real value. Meanwhile, if a 2% yielder keeps growing the dividend faster than inflation, along with growing earnings and appreciating in price, that investment can become much more powerful over the next decade or two. And that's the mathematical power of a stable foundation. It isn't built to impress you this month, it's built to make the whole portfolio stronger every year. And when you're younger or far away from retirement, time is one of your biggest financial assets or enablers of growth potential. You're trying to build the machine, accumulate shares, and let dividend growth, earnings growth, reinvestment, and stock appreciation do the heavy lifting, ideally in a Roth account. That's why younger investors can sometimes hurt themselves by reaching too quickly for high yield, because they may get more income today while giving up the growth that they could have made their future income and portfolio value much larger. This is also the level where inexpensive broad-based ETFs like VTI or VU are. Leave me a comment with what your greatest asset is right now, however you interpret that question. Moving on, the middle layer in the pyramid is about medium yield and medium growth. So yields around the 3% to 5% range, and dividend growth may be in the 5 to 9% range. That might be companies like J&J, McDonald's, PG, Coca-Cola, etc. Again, the exact percentages aren't the important part, more just conceptually what I'm talking about. Like, I'd be fine counting J&J as part of my base, even though it and all stocks will go through periods where they languish in growth. Think of Microsoft. Over the long term they've done really well, but in the last year they have floundered. A year is a relatively short time frame, but hopefully you get the point. This layer gives you some meaningful cash flow today while still keeping decent growth potential for tomorrow. It should have the types of tickers where the portfolio feels productive with its dividends without giving up on growth. So you're getting income you can actually notice, and you should get enough dividend growth to keep that income stream growing faster than inflation. This layer should be a powerful bridge because it gives you more income potential than the low yield foundation level while still having enough growth to keep the portfolio moving forward. Thus, you aren't forced to choose completely between living today and building for tomorrow. And as your income needs increase, this layer can become a bigger part of the pyramid, so don't think it literally has to be a pyramid shape. Hopefully it's clear that this middle section gives you a strong blend of cash flow, growth, and still quality stability. That matters because income without growth can quietly become a trap. I mean, if your income never grows, then inflation slowly cuts your spending power every single year. This middle part is where your medium yielding dividend ETFs might be. Now, I think you could argue that something like SCHD could be in the foundation, or it could be here, depending on you. Leave me a comment on where you'd put SCHD in your pyramid. Moving on, let's climb to the top, where high yield belongs. I'm talking about investments yielding 6%, 9%, or even more, but with low growth, no growth, or growth that may only be around 0 to 2% per year. This could include certain REITs, BDCs, covered call funds, preferred shares, higher yielding dividend stocks, or other types of income-heavy assets. These kinds of things can be useful, but they belong near the top because the math is different. I mean, when an investment has high yield but little or no growth, the income may look great today, but it usually doesn't have much inflation protection or stock appreciation behind it. Now, you'll sometimes find edge cases that are high yield and good growth. Like Altria might be an example that has grown well over the long term and has had a high average yield. And note, I'm long Altria and SCHD and a bunch of others I mentioned in this, and feel free to watch my recent videos to see my entire holdings in fidelity. Now, some high yield tickers can produce a lot of income while their share price stays flat, drifts lower, or becomes more sensitive to interest rates, credit conditions, or market stresses. That doesn't necessarily make them useless. It just means they have a different job in your portfolio. The top of your pyramid is for boosting cash flow, not usually for producing your strongest dividend growth or strongest stock appreciation. That's also where I'd put income ETFs like Devo and JEPQ and stuff like that. The largest percentage of ticker value should be in your base, and the top should be the smallest, broadly speaking. That's just if your goal is to create a portfolio that can do decently in all markets. If you want to go super heavy in options income ETFs that I'd put at the top, then that has its own trade-offs and implications in times where it will prosper more. But for me, the top is not the layer I'd want holding up the entire structure unless my life situation required far more current income and I understood the trade-offs. The higher the yield and the lower the growth, the more careful you need to be with position sizing, broadly speaking. And this is where the sizing of the pyramid becomes personal to your own situation. I mean, your age, timeline, income needs, growth needs, risk tolerance, and emotional ability to handle volatility all matter. Again, if you're young, still working, and don't need the income right now, your base might be massive because you're trying to maximize the future portfolio value, maybe future income, and ultimately long-term total return. But if you need cash to pay the bills today, and you want passive income instead of selling shares for cash, then you might build a pyramid that is heavier up top and in the middle. If the top of your pyramid is the biggest allocation, then your portfolio is probably being built for income first, not maximum long-term compounding. That can work out, but I'd still argue that you should be thoughtful about diversification, payout safety, capital preservation, and whether enough of the portfolio is still growing to help fight inflation. But an upside-down pyramid can become riskier depending on the tickers you go with. Like some newer dividend investors sometimes focus on the top with highest yields, and so make those the majority of their portfolio, and tell themselves they're building passive income faster. And for a while they probably are, because the payments are big and their spreadsheet looks exciting. But they may be trying to support their entire portfolio with zero growth assets. They might face more dangers not just of dividend cuts or market crashes hurting them more, but they might overexpose themselves to NAV decay and capital decay. If their ticker prices grind lower year after year while inflation pushes against their income, then they're probably losing principal and purchasing power at the same time. That's a classic case of cracks starting to appear in their portfolio. I mean, a portfolio with no growth is like a building with no reinforcements. It may stand for a while, but every year inflation pushes against it, Every market downturn tests it, and every dividend cut weakens the frame. At first, the cracks might be small, like a little less purchasing power here, a little capital erosion there, or a fund that keeps paying while it heads south. But over time, those small cracks can become structural, and that's when the income plan that looks safe on a spreadsheet starts to feel a lot less stable in real life. And that's why I like a well-structured pyramid. That's why I like to understand how fast a dividend is growing, whether total growth can continue, whether the payout is covered by cash flow, whether the business can stay competitive, whether the income is growing faster than inflation, whether the investment can appreciate over time, etc., etc. And if the yield is high, you want to understand why it's high and what its risks and trade-offs are, as they're almost always there. Sometimes you give up growth, safety, capital appreciation, take on more volatility, pay more fees, or whatever. Sometimes the income is real, but the total return tells a very different story, and that's why the pyramid matters. It reminds you that every asset has a job, but not every job belongs at the foundation. A strong dividend portfolio usually isn't built by asking which stock pays the most today. It's built by asking which combination of yield, dividend growth, stock appreciation, safety, and risk gives me the best chance of reaching my actual goals within my desired timeframes. And low or no yield and high growth at the base is often a great way to build long-term power. Then medium yield and medium growth in the middle to create balance and cash flow. Finally, high yield and low growth at the top to boost income when you need it, but not in a way that ignores inflation, capital risk, or dividend safety. Build your portfolio intentionally, and then give yourself a much better chance of creating something that doesn't just pay you today, but keeps getting stronger for decades to come. And with that, I ask you to leave me a comment and tell me what your thoughts are on your portfolio, and if you feel you've designed it to meet your needs. Speaking of whether something fits your needs, while New York didn't do it for me, I did think it was pretty cool that I randomly walked past Daniel Radcliffe, aka Harry Potter, after he stepped out of a show to sign autographs for fans. And fun story, when that first Harry Potter book came out, I was traveling a lot for work, and I was reading a hardback copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on a plane, which outside the US is called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I was a little embarrassed to be sitting in business class reading what I thought was a kid's book, so I took off the cover and tossed it in my laptop bag. Then I looked down the aisle and saw that another guy was reading the same book, and he had also taken the cover off. We both realized what we had done and started laughing, and that reminded me that I really shouldn't care so much about what other people think, which brings me to the snarky comment I got this week from a hater who called my content garbage. So here he said dividends are irrelevant and I should read the literature. I wrote back that I have read the academic literature and created videos talking about that as well as other perspectives on it. I shared some links that he could watch, but then he came back and said he's not going to watch my garbage content and that he advises real clients. That all being said, today on May 20th, Nvidia hiked its dividend 2,400% from 1 cent per quarter to 25 cents per quarter, so I guess its CEO doesn't think dividends are irrelevant. And yes, I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek because the term irrelevant is overloaded. But the broader point still stands. There is a reason some of the smartest tech leaders in the world at companies like Google, Meta, and Nvidia are choosing to push cash back to their shareholders through dividends, even if the current yields are still low. Maybe, just maybe, they're a little more financially savvy than the dividend haters on the internet. And for full disclosure, I own a small amount of Nvidia in my kid's custodial account. Fun note, I have a Patreon subscriber with an 8-figure Nvidia position, so let's just say he's having a pretty good day. Now the haters might still say the yield is low, but to them I say watch the snowball build over time and talk to me in a decade. And with that I ask you to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and click that bell notification. Next, I'd like to show my gratitude to subscribers who left me kind comments, so I'm going to shout out 10 who've done just that. So thank yous go out to Vizik Onig Tosset, Info Dividend, JS Mad W5, Mitch Wierstra, Jeff Aragon, Brian is Awesome, That Viola Kid, Dave's Cell Phone, Tom Boyle, and multiple from Donald Comer. Thanks folks, I really appreciate it. Next, I'd like to pitch my Seeking Alpha affiliate link, which often has benefits when new people sign up. I'd also like to pitch my Fast Graphs affiliate link, along with my coupon code in the description of this video, as using both will allow new subscribers to get 25% off their first payment, even if they sign up for a full year. Also check out my Patreon page, and or consider joining my channel membership, as both have some cool perks you might like. Finally, I'll close this off by recommending that everyone join my free Dividend Discord chat server, which has over 11,000 dividend investors on it from 87 countries around the world. Thanks for watching, stay positive, and I'll talk to you again real soon.
Remember, I'm not a financial advisor and my videos are for entertainment and inspirational purposes only. Investing of any kind involves risk. I'm only sharing my opinions with no guarantee of gains or losses on investments.